Hello students, I am R. Mukherjee from Shipra Vidyalaya. In this video, I am just going to read a lesson of history, and that is the rise of small kingdom states. Students, reading a lesson is really important activity. So you must read the lesson repeatedly, loudly and very carefully. किसी भी पाठ को ध्यान से पढ़ना सबसे महत्वपूर्ण कार्य है. जो विद्यार्थी पाठ को ध्यान लगाकर नहीं पढ़ते हैं वे कभी भी अच्छे विद्यार्थी नहीं हो सकते हैं. यहाँ एक महत्वपूर्ण बात मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि रीडिंग के दौरान मैं जिन शब्दों को अंडरलाइन करूँगा वे हिस्ट्री के महत्वपूर्ण शब्द हैं. उन्हें आप भी अंडरलाइन करें और उन शब्दों को सही स्पेलिंग और प्रोनाउंसिएशन के साथ पढ़ना सीखें. उनके अर्थ आप डिक्शनरी से ढूंढें, परंतु यदि समझ में ना आए तो चिंता ना करें, क्योंकि मैं लेसन एक्सप्लेन करते समय उन सभी शब्दों को समझा दूंगा. इतिहास के संदर्भ में इन शब्दों को समझे बिना इतिहास समझना संभव नहीं है. You must learn these new words. Okay? So are you ready? Okay, let's start. King Harshvardhan died in the year 647 AD. Now here AD nowadays called CE, Common Era. So AD means Anno Domini, and nowadays it is called CE, Common Era. I will explain it in my next video. King Harshvardhan died in the year 647 AD. After that, for the next 600 years, there were no large empires in India. Empires. Underline the word empires. The country was divided into many small kingdoms. Underline the word kingdoms. Why did this happen? From where did these small kingdoms arise? Who were the famous kings of the time? How did they manage to maintain large armies to protect their kingdoms and conquer more territory? Underline the word territory. What went on in their royal courts? Royal courts. Underline these words. We shall learn about these things in this lesson. Now, this lesson will answer all the questions here mentioned here. So, now here you see a map is given here, and this map shows the small kingdoms and how India was divided into small kingdoms after the death of King Harshvardhan. Okay? You can see the country was divided into small. These are the names of dynasties. Dynasty is a word which means Rajvansh. So India was divided into small kingdoms ruled by different dynasties. So we can say that India was not united. It was divided in many small kingdoms. Okay? How new kings and dynasties were formed? Now the question is, how new kings and the dynasties, I told you, dynasties means Rajvansh. how new kings and dynasties were formed. Many kings used to inscribe. Inscribe is the verb form of inscription. Inscribe means to write by engraving on rock or copper plates. So underline this word, inscribe. Many kings used to inscribe their orders and edicts on rocks and copper plates. Poets and bards, here it should be bards, also wrote songs of praise to their kings in this way. We come to know more about the history of those times by reading what is written on these rocks and copper plates. The inscriptions. The inscriptions, underline the word inscriptions, and copies of the nearby rocks and copper plates shows that there were many powerful kings ruled in different parts of India around the year 650 AD who got victory over their surroundings, or it should be surrounding areas and included into their empires. I repeat, the inscriptions and the copies of the nearby rocks and copper plates shows that there were many powerful kings ruled in different parts of India around the year 650 AD who got victory over their surrounding areas and included into their empires. These rulers, now you can underline what is the meaning of victory, empires, rulers. These rulers were constantly at war. These rulers were constantly at war with each other to extend their empire. But the descendants, this is a new word, descendants, very important word. But the descendants of these powerful kings were weak and incapable rulers. Incapable rulers, underline these words. Once they conquered is a new word. Once they conquered more territory, they appointed their army generals and senior officers to govern these new regions and establish their authority, underline the word authority, over them. I repeat, once they conquered more territory, they appointed their army generals and senior officers to govern these new regions and establish their authority over them. Many of the governors, now here another word, it is related word of govern. Govern is the verb form, governor is the noun form. Plural governors. Governor, governors. Many of the governors means rulers. Many of the governors refused to accept their authority. Many of the governors refused to accept their authority. For example, in a state of Western India, there was rule of Rashtrakoot. Now, students, listen very carefully. If you see this spelling of this word. It sounds like Rashtrakutas, but you should read it Rashtrakuta. Rashtrakuta. This is the name of a dynasty. This is the name of a Rajvansh. Rashtrakuta. Okay? India, in a state of Western India, there was rule of Rashtrakuta dynasty, who were officers of Chalukya kings. Chalukya, not Chalukya. It will sound like Chalukya, but you should read it Chalukya, who were officers of Chalukya kings. So Chalukya is another name of another dynasty. But the Rashtrakuta became so strong that they declared themselves as kings in the 8th century and began ruling independently. Underline the word independently. So it is the opposite word of dependently. The root word is dependent, independent, dependently, independently. Okay, I will explain. Okay, now next paragraph. Sometimes, cut this word, sometimes a strong warrior, underline the word warrior, sometimes a strong warrior would take the help of his friends to attack weak tribals and stamp his authority over them. Weak tribals, stamp his authority over them. Later, he would invite Brahmins, merchants. Brahmins is actually Brahman. Merchants is an English word, merchant, plural merchants. And peasants. Peasant is the singular, peasant, and plural is peasants. So merchant, peasant, these are all words to be learned. Okay. Later he would invite Brahmins, merchants, and peasants from other places to settle in the area he had conquered and declared himself king. A stone inscription found at Ghatiyal near Jodhpur in Rajasthan gives one such example. I repeat the sentence. A stone inscription found at Ghatiyal near Jodhpur in Rajasthan gives one such example. It says means the inscription says. Here it means inscription. It is a pronoun used for inscription. The inscription says that the pratihar, again I would like to remind you that the sound of this word here is pratiharas, but you should not pronounce it like pratihara. You should pronounce it pratihar. Pratihar. So the inscription says that the Pratihar, it is again a name of a dynasty, Pratihar dynasty. Okay. So the inscription says that the Pratihar established their rule in the region in this way. In Chhattisgarh, the Kalchuri became rulers of the Tripuri kingdom near Jabalpur in a similar manner. So Kalchuri is another name of another dynasty. Kalchuri एक और राजवंश का नाम है, Kalchuri. We found so many names here of dynasties. Rashtrakoot, Chalukya, then we got Pratihar, Okay, Kalchuri. So these are the names of dynasties. Okay, so in Chhattisgarh, the Kalchuri established their rule in the region in this way. In Chhattisgarh, the Kalchuri became the rulers of Tripuri kingdom near Jabalpur in a similar manner. There were more ways to become king and establish kingdom. Here one word is missing, establish. Establish kingdom. Here like means, for example, some families would settle in an area and acquire, underline the word acquire, a lot of land for farming. They dig wells, ponds and bowries. Bowri means wells again. So it is a Hindi word, bowri. So they would dig wells, ponds and bowries to irrigate the land to get a good crop. As their harvests, this is a new word, harvest, increased, these families would become wealthy and powerful. Their grandeur, here grandeur, new word, their grandeur would increase and other people would seek their help and advice. Advice is the noun form of advice. The people would pay obeisance. Obeisance, this is a new word. Obeisance means to pay respect and obey the advice. Obeisance. Okay? The people would pay obeisance to them and listen to whatever they said. To establish their superiority, underline this word, superiority and authority. To establish their superiority and authority, these families would tell people they were descended, and this is the verb form, and noun adjective form is descendant. Okay, descendants or descendant, noun form, sorry. So they were descended from a lineage. Lineage is a new word. So I repeat it. To establish their superiority and authority, these families would tell people they were descended from lineage. Lineage means in Hindi we can call Vanshavali or Vansh. They were descended from a lineage of gods and rishis. The Pal, here again I would like to mention that it should be pronounced as Pal, not Pala. Okay, Pal, P-A-L-A, but it is pronounced as Pal. Pal is the name of a dynasty, Pal dynasty of Bengal. Okay, the Pal dynasty of Bengal and the Kalchuris of central India established their supremacy. This is a new word, the related word of superiority, supremacy, in this way. I repeat, the Pal dynasty of Bengal and the Kalchuri of central India established their supremacy in this way. The role of Brahmins and Bhatts. Brahmins helped powerful families establish royal dynasties and guided the new kings in governing their kingdoms. Royal dynasties Governing is the word from govern, governing, governor, government, all are related words. Okay. Brahmins held powerful families, established royal dynasties, and guided the new kings in governing their kingdoms. In those days, the Brahmins were known for their wisdom, learning, and knowledge of religion. In those days, the Brahmins were known for their wisdom, learning, and knowledge of religion. They were also respected for their understanding of governance and statecraft. This is a new word. Statecraft means the art of ruling. That is why kings in North and South India invited Brahmins who lived on the banks of the Ganga and Yamuna rivers to settle in their kingdoms. In return, the kings would donate entire villages or the revenue collected, this is the new word, revenue, collected from several villages to these Brahmins. I repeat, in return, the kings would donate entire villages or the revenue collected from several villages to these Brahmins. They kept a record of these donations by inscribing their orders on the copper plates. There was another reason why kings made such generous donations. Underline this word, to the Brahmins. There was another reason why kings made such generous donations to the Brahmins: to establish their supremacy in society. The kings would get the Brahmins prepared a lineage for kings. You know, they used to ask the Brahmins to prepare a lineage of kings. वंशावली तैयार करने के लिए उनको कहते थे. Showing that they were the descended from sun, moon or some great rishis. और उस वंशावली में वो ब्राह्मण्स जो थे वो ये दर्शाते थे कि ये जो राजा है, ये जो किंग है, ये किसी सूर्य का पुत्र है या मून का वंश का है या फिर कोई ग्रेट ऋषि के वंश का है. So they would also ask them to perform. They would also ask them, means rishis, Brahmins, they would also ask the Brahmins to perform Rajasuya or Ashwamegh and other types of yajna. You see the pronunciation, you must be very careful. Yajna, Ashwamegh yajna, Rajasuya yajna and other types of yajna, to show how powerful they were. A copper plate was found in Chhattisgarh showing the donations made by the Kalchuri king Ratnadev III. Here Ratnadev III means he was the third king of the Ratnadev dynasty. Okay? I mean the Kalchuri dynasty, sorry. So Ratnadev was the third king of the Kalchuri dynasty. Okay. The Bhats also played an important role in establishing the royal lineage. Royal lineage. Bhards. The Bhards also played an important role in establishing the royal lineage. The Bhard tradition prevailed in the entire North India region during this time. They were court poets. So Bhards were actually court poets who sang songs in the local language praising the kings and his ancestors, underline the word. These songs would instill a feeling of respect and pride for the king among the people. In Chhattisgarh, this tradition can be seen in the form of the Charan poets. In Chhattisgarh, these Bhards are called Charan poets. One such poet was Dalram Rao, who lived in the court of Raja Lakshmi Nidhi of Khairagarh. There was a state called Khairagarh, and the king of that state was Raja Lakshmi Nidhi, and Dalram was a Bhard, means Charan poet, in his court. He was the first person to use the name Chhattisgarh in one of his poems of praise to the king. Monarchs and feudal kings. Now these are very important words to understand. Monarchs and feudal kings. Okay, feudal kings or feudal lords. As the number of small kingdoms grew, the wars between them also increased. Each king fought his neighbors to expand his territory. But as we saw in this case of Emperor Chandragupta, the victorious king usually returned the land to the vanquished, new word, under certain conditions. The defeated king had to accept his conqueror as his king and master. I repeat, but as we saw in this case of Emperor Chandragupta, the victorious king usually returned the land to the vanquished under certain conditions. The defeated king had to accept his conqueror. You see, these are very important words. Conqueror. It is the noun form of conquer. The defeated king had to accept his conqueror as his king and master. The victor, means the victorious king, became the adhipati or the monarch, while the vanquished became his samant or feudal vassal. To establish the victor's authority further, the defeated king was made to write his name in the following manner. The defeated king had to write the name of the victorious king in a particular manner. And what is that manner? Let us read. Mahasamanta Shri Shitipal, Mahasamanta Shri Shitipal, whose place is at the feet of Parambhattarak Parameshwar Maharaja Dhiraj Shri Bhojdev. Now here the Bhojdev was the victorious king and Kshitipal was the defeated king. So Kshitipal became the Samant of, or feudal vassal of, the king Bhojdev. And the defeated king had to write his name and his master's name in a particular manner. Mahasamant Shri Kshitipal, whose place is at the feet of Parambhattarak Parameshwar Maharajadhiraj Shri Bhojdev. The feudal vassals would also give precious gifts. Now feudal vassals, also underline the feudal vassals, okay? Vanquished, okay. The feudal vassals would also give precious gifts to the monarch to show their loyalty and gratitude. Loyalty is the noun form of loyal, and gratitude. These are all new words. Whenever is one word. Whenever. It is printed here in two parts. Whenever the monarch went to war, the feudals had to go with his armies to assist him in the battlefield. Now students, I will read, this is a very long lesson, so I will read the remaining part in my next video, okay? But I hope that you will follow my instructions and read the lesson very carefully, repeatedly and loudly, okay? So thank you very much.